Hi, welcome to the Optimising Your Brilliance podcast, where we get to the source of what makes people brilliant and explore how to eradicate the barriers that stop you from shining. By shining, I mean being at your absolute best in both work and life. You'll hear from business and thought leaders who bear all and share their insider secrets, along with my episodes focused on optimising your performance, productivity, success and well-being. My name is Estelle Reid, founder of Be, executive coach, speaker and best-selling author of Inner Brilliance, Outer Shine, 10 Antidotes to Imposter Syndrome, Workaholism and Stress. So if you're ready to take your work life to the next level, let's begin. Hello there. So if you've been listening along, you'll be aware that I've been reading from my book, Inner Brilliance, Outer Shine. I've been given permission to read most of it, but not all of it. And the bits that I thought, how can I kill two birds with one stone? So in other words, be as helpful as possible to you, but also not go against what my publisher has asked, which is not to read all of it. So the way I thought it would work for you and it would work for them is that I'm excluding all the activities that are involved. And actually, I've thought, well, if you're listening to this when you're out running, you're not going to be able to do the activities anyway. But you can still download all of those activities by accessing the QR code. So if you're watching this along on YouTube, you can see where I'm pointing. For those of you that are listening along, if you go to estellereid.com, you'll find the tab that's called Resources, and on there you'll be able to download both the workbook, which includes all the activities from my book, and also the free journal, which incidentally I've just updated with the new model. In fact, I've updated both documents over the last week, so it's a really good time to either access that for the first time or re-download it. So I don't know if you remember, I said at the start, this was all a bit of an experiment. I didn't know how it was going to go. It's great that some of you are listening along. I can see that. So thank you so much. Little reminder to hit subscribe either on YouTube or on wherever you listen to your podcast, because I can see that things are building momentum. And so yeah, I am glad it's an experiment that's working out, basically. But I keep honing and trying to improve it a little bit every time I record the podcast. I'm on a new computer today. It's thrown me all out. But one of the things I'm going to do today is I'm going to try reading from the screen so that it's less distracting for those of you on YouTube. You might get a little more eye contact, but then again, you might still just see the top of my head. But anyway, thank you from the bottom of my heart for listening along. Let's start chapter 5, which is called Antidote number 5, Navigate to Destination Joy. So, quote, "A vision without action is just a dream. Action without vision is a nightmare." Chinese proverb. I've worked with Jennifer regularly for several sessions, choosing to use her sessions these days as a recap, a refocus, and a reset. She often talks about how much she loves life during coaching. She runs a successful business, has a husband whom she adores, and 2 great kids she's very proud of. They go on amazing holidays and live in a fantastic home. They want for nothing. So much so that she has made many anonymous contributions to charity. She doesn't expect public recognition and only shares this in the privacy of a session with me because it makes her happy to be able to do these things. She is very well adjusted and thinks well of herself in an understated way. She is at what I refer to as destination joy. It hasn't always been that way though. And in this chapter, we'll look at how you too can plot your way to your version of destination joy. Heading, Destination Grim. Most of us don't intentionally end up at destination grim. It's usually a series of small, unconscious moves that take us off course and heading in the wrong direction. Hence the need for coming off autopilot and becoming your own captain. Then we wake up one morning and think, how on earth did I end up here? The joy of work life has gone. We're stressed, overworked, and overwhelmed with everything. There's no headspace for joy. Back to Jennifer. When I first met her, I'd describe her as direct, to the point, or being brusque, on high alert, guarded, and tensed. However, I saw a chink in her armour after a team delivered a presentation following a personal development programme I'd been running. We'd spent several months together, and they too had been on the voyage, you might call it a cheesy journey, on these personal development programs. The presentations were heartfelt, some of them sharing how much they didn't believe in themselves before they started the course. At one point, Jennifer momentarily teared up. Blink and you'd miss it. She could relate to what they were saying. She was having a crisis of confidence and belief, and yet here she was, the big successful boss with a tough exterior. Nobody else knew what she was really feeling inside. I shared my observations and encouraged her to book a free discovery call. It took months for her to finally come for coaching. When she did, she described her destination grim. She got off course because one of the top jobs would soon be available, and it was looking unlikely that she was going to get it. Jennifer's colleague was favoured because she was better at administering the business. This made Jennifer doubt herself. In her mind, it had always been the logical next step. However, how many people get promoted away from the strengths and damage their success and happiness? Add to the fact that Jennifer's relationships at work were tense, as was the atmosphere at home. She couldn't switch off. She described it as a tension across her shoulders, which was always there. When she went on holiday, it took almost the whole vacation to switch off, let alone unwind. She couldn't be present for people. She was already a very successful woman with everything that she needed. She just wasn't able to enjoy it. If you can't enjoy your success, what's the point of all the hard work, folks? Next heading, the magical mystery tour. Most human beings don't deliberately go off course and make themselves unhappy. However, what we sometimes fail to do is reflect, work out what's not working for us, and then identify a plan of how we'd like to be as a person and what we'd like to move towards. Consequently, we end up on a magical mystery tour being surprised by the crap that turns up along the way. We end up on a miserable mystery tour. As a kid, the thing I longed for the most was my mum and dad getting back together. I used to fantasize about this, listening to my dad's signature music, which was Jean-Michel Jarre. Let's call him JMJ for short, because I'll mention him a few times. Whenever we saw Pops, he'd play JMJ in his beige Ford Cortina. It was that rusty that when we drove over a puddle, he'd say, "Lift your feet up, girls. You might get wet." To be honest, the music sounded like squeaky bike wheels to me, but I loved it because it represented him. Listening to JMJ's album, Oxygen, on a cassette tape on my Sony Walkman whisked me off to the land of happy ever after. Well, be careful what you wish for, folks. They did get back together in my teens. When it actually happened, it was a little bit strange. Anyway, as part of our family reunion trips together, my dad asked us if we wanted to go and see JMJ at a free concert in the London Docklands. I leapt at the chance, regardless of how uncool liking JMG was for me at the stage in my life. Off we all set, Excited, going to London on the train, eating sandwiches from the buffet car and drinking tea from styrofoam cups. It felt like a real treat day out for us. We rarely ate out in those days, and eating on a train counted as eating out. When we arrive, I realise my dad doesn't know the specific location of the concert or what time it starts. As it begins to get dark, we can see that the show is already in progress. When I ask where we're heading, he says, "Let's follow the lights." JMG used to use a laser beam, and he used to sync the lasers with the music. It was innovative in the 80s. We wander through what seemed like endless, meandering, dark terrace streets with crowds of other people in search of the free concert. This was partly reassuring, as it meant that we weren't the only fools on a directionless mission. I can't tell you how frustrated I felt. We were so near and yet so far, and no plan as to how to get to our destination. We didn't know where our destination was. Even now, I still get irritated if my husband takes me on a magical mystery tour. I hate wasting time. Note to self, I probably need to haven that. Anyway, we arrive at the concert as Jean-Michel Jarre was saying, "Au revoir." I said that in my best French accent. The magical mystery tour is something I see both in business and in my one-to-one coaching work. We wonder how we end up at destination grim, getting results that we don't want, and it's often because we don't take time to recognise that we're captains of our ship and destiny by taking charge of the results we're getting in work and life. Reflect on what needs to change in work and life. Align ourselves to the stars and our own gifts, talents, and achievements. Get rid of the triggers that drown our joy. More about that in the next chapter. Identify our destination, a vision. Plan how we're going to achieve the vision by identifying the goals and tasks that will get us there. If we don't plan how to get to our vision, it's just a fantasy. Why fantasizing screws up your navigation. Dr. Irina O'Brien, PhD, a cognitive neuroscientist who has been studying psychology and neuroscience for over 20 years, draws on several studies in an article which demonstrates that it's just fantasy if we simply visualize our outcomes, e.g., our vision of where we want to journey to. This is first because the brain struggles to differentiate between real and imagined. Secondly, studies have measured a drop in energy using systolic blood pressure. What this means is that if you're imagining the day when you've accomplished your outcome, your brain thinks you've already achieved it. So why bother mustering up energy and action to attain it? Therefore, stop fantasizing or visualizing what you will get at the end of your journey. You're decreasing your chances of reaching your goal or vision. What we need to do is program our minds with the specific goals and tasks, the small steps involved, which will get us there, not the destination. So, if you're going to fantasize, start visualizing the smaller steps. Heading: Natural unconscious happiness and success. It was no coincidence that Jennifer was happy with a lot and reached destination joy. She didn't fantasize about making changes, she took positive action, small steps in the right direction, and came for regular coaching sessions to offload the baggage that was causing drag. This resulted in Jennifer and her business being even more successful without much effort. When we remove what's dragging us down, we become more efficient and more effective. We're no longer wasting brain calories and time on the things that have triggered us. We can breeze through work life more easily. We build resilience so that when the waters get choppy and work life throws us some waves, because it will. My dad's died since I wrote this book, so it was lovely just to read that story and remember him. But that was an example of a wave. We have enough buoyancy to ride the storm. Then we move on to some action points, which, as I say, you can download in that free workbook and journal, which you can find on my website, which is Estelle Reed, spelt read as in a book.com, and head over to the resources. So, Jennifer got promoted to a different role which suited her talents, skills, and abilities. She was able to comfortably tell clients that she couldn't see them for 6 weeks because she was good at what she did, as opposed to trying to squeeze everything onto a production line. More about this in Chapter 7, and working herself into the ground at the same time. Her clients continued to queue up. She was able to enjoy family time again, be present, and relax straight into holidays. The tension she held in her shoulders disappeared. Do you know what? Reading back these stories, it really warms the cockles of my heart, thinking about those individuals. Now, I've obviously disguised them in my stories because I'm protecting the identity of my clients. But it is lovely when I reflect back and think about how they were before and then how they were after they'd done the work. So it's so worth it if you're thinking about this stuff. Right, next heading, destination joy. Recently, we went away with our friends to the Lake District. Oh, not like we're living in. This is going to be funny because we're now here, you know that. Ali and I went on a little horse riding jaunt around the Knobbly Fells whilst the rest of the gang watched the rugby. You know what's funny about that little story is, talk about full circle moment. So we did go horse riding, went on these massive, beautiful horses. The lady that runs the horse riding is actually very good friends with my old best mate when I lived here as a child. Talk about small world. So I discovered that, and the full circle moment is that during the summer, I'm going to be taking my daughter back to do some meditation with horses. I can't wait. Right, okay, so where am I up to? So afterwards, we met up at their apartment with Prosecco in hand. I'm stood like John Wayne in my smelly jobbers, admiring the view of the marina. Then I realised we'd rented the apartment next door 11 years ago. It was another full circle moment. Back then, I was 5 months pregnant. I felt ecstatically happy. It had been a long road getting to this point. My bump, now visible, it's making me a bit emotional, folks, thinking about it. My bump visible called for expandable sweatpants. I'm sat on the floor, feeling all goody two-shoes like that. Having completed my daily baby yoga DVD, when it occurs to me that we need a vision board. Our lives were about to change. My husband appears from the bedroom and has barely opened his eyes. Poor bloke, he has to put up with a lot. When I ask him what he would like from our future together as a new family. Again, he knew that look, over-enthusiastic and too early in the morning. He said, "Draw me a boat on Lake Windermere." I thought, a bit random. He's never mentioned any interest in boats before, but okay, cool. 8 years later, we buy Lady B, an entry-level boat. We were reminded by the salesman. Our caravan on water, and there we were, my friend and I, clinking our Prosecco glasses, looking out on the marina at Lady B. Who'd have thought it? You know what else is funny as well? Because we were complete boat novices, we had no idea. Well, I'm just talking about myself. I'm not including my husband in this. But I wasn't into any of the technicalities or anything like that. And I didn't even notice what the boat was called. But when we were signing the paperwork, I looked down and it was called Lady B. And I was like, you are kidding me, aren't you? Because you know what business is called? B, but with 3 E's. Talk about serendipitous moment. Right, focus, Estelle, back to the script. Often, vision and mission get confused when I work with organisations. Think of a vision as a big, hairy, audacious goal, or BHAG for short. A future destination you want to travel to. A term used in Built to Last, Successful Habits of Visionary Companies. It's an amazing book, would recommend it. Something that you want to achieve or become. Earlier in chapter 3, you considered your position A, which is where you are right now. Your position B is where you want to move towards, your vision. A mission, rather than something that you want to achieve or become, a mission, on the other hand, is something that is a constant regardless of where you're journeying to, and is about what you do and your reason for existence. Do you remember me talking about my purpose, which is expressed through my mission and strapline, Optimising Brilliance? And the name of this podcast, Optimising Your Brilliance, in fact. This has stayed with me for 14 years. I've been in business. I've now been in business coming up for 20 years. I can't believe that. And helps me to decide which projects I will and I won't accept, regardless of what vision I have set myself. My current business vision statement is, I took a deep breath then. So I was like, oh my God, here it comes. To make B a transferable business so that I can work anywhere in the UK. Right, there's a little story behind that. That was partly a good business vision. The reason I say partly is, so what was behind that, and this is something that I'm writing about actually in book number 2, that sometimes we make incongruent decisions. So we self-sabotage ourselves because of an unconscious need. So we might have a conscious desire on the one hand, a vision, a dream, whatever else. But beneath the surface in our unconscious mind, we have an opposite desire. So that's why sometimes we can be drawn in 2 different directions. We self-sabotage and we don't achieve the things that we want to achieve. You know, how many New Year's resolutions, for example, have you, given up? So back to that vision statement. So my business vision statement was to make B a transferable business so that I can work anywhere in the UK. And in my head, so when I used to do vision group coaching sessions, when I was talking about this particular vision, I used to show them a picture of the 80s, anytime, any place, anywhere, martini advert. Do you remember that? I'm holding up, for those of you that are not watching YouTube, I'm holding up an imaginary tray on my hand, and the beautiful lady skated along in her rollerblades. Well, it'll have been roller boots, won't it, back in the 80s? And the strapline was anytime, any place, anywhere. And that's what I kept having in my own mind, that I needed to be able to work anytime, any place, anywhere, because I had this desire to go and live in the Lake District. But where I was self-sabotaging is I also knew that my husband had this other desire to go and live in Yorkshire. Now, we live in the lakes. So the backstory to that is that so this is where the vision statement was wrong, as in it wasn't fully truthful. It was good, it got me to a certain position. One of the reasons I wrote my book, part of the business strategy, was to have more of a national coverage, and that's what's happened. I do a work all over the place, but actually just from this Lake District office. It's great. But yeah, where I tripped myself up was by not being fully truthful with my husband. And instead of just saying, look, do you know what? We agreed that I followed you to Derby from Lancaster, and that the next move after that had my name on it. So in other words, he had to follow me to the next destination. And that was always the agreement. But because making him happy is really, really important to me, I suppressed that need. So I wasn't fully congruent in my vision statement. Whereas a fully congruent vision statement would have read to be able to live and work from the Lake District or from Cumbria. So instead, what translated after that, it's quite embarrassing really, is a merry dance looking round Yorkshire, so going on many Yorkshire holidays and me going, no, not really feeling it here, trying to please my husband. My poor husband going, what about this place? And we drive off. And until in the end, I just said, look, I'm not feeling it anywhere. And I was brave, put my big girl pants on and said, look, I want to live in the lakes. But that felt in that moment really selfish and self-centered, but it absolutely was the right decision for us. And given the choice, my husband said even now he wouldn't move to Yorkshire. He absolutely bloody well loves it up here. And the other benefit has been that it's meant that our daughter has been able to be connected for the first time in her life to our family, because we are, my family live in, I have to think then, in Lancashire. I don't think we've got any in Cumbria, but it's not far away. It's like half an hour away. So, for example, she can be walking down Kendal High Street and she bumps into her sister. In fact, she's going to be going to college at her sister's workplace. How cool is that? She'd never have had that if we'd moved to Yorkshire or if we'd stayed in the Midlands. So I guess what I'm trying to say to you folk is, you know me, I'm always congruent. Not always congruent, because I've just given an example of incongruency. I always act with integrity. I like to be honest and straightforward with you. And I do that by sharing my screw ups. And so the overall statement was okay, but it could have been better, is the summary. Because we ended up doing a merry dance and wasting time, basically. But we're here now, so that's all that matters. So, because my work and life are so entwined, as probably is yours, this vision statement also guides my personal life. It's in my private life, which has instigated my current vision. I would love to be able to move my family to either a mountainous location, the Lake District, or somewhere near the sea once my husband retires, so that he can do long dog walks and tend his garden. Well, that's the life we live now. That's exactly the life we live now. So don't underestimate the power of a vision, folks. I also want to ensure my daughter gets the educational start she needs in life by going to a great school, so that she is embedded into a community that she loves and feels part of. And again, we were just talking about that today. She's restarting a Saturday job, and while she's just left her current school, so her Kendal school, it turns out that was her favourite school of all time. Now, can you imagine if we'd not moved? She would have missed out on that opportunity to have a great last couple of years at this particular school. But it's given her that period of time to start to get established in the community. So that bit was all right. I'd like to be able to coach, train and develop people and business anytime, any place, anywhere. I mentioned that earlier. But not on roller skates or in a miniskirt with a bottle of martini on a tray, although it could be fun, but it might be off-putting for my clients. I don't have the figure for it, folks. I would like to work even more flexibly so that I can spend quality stretches with my husband in his retirement. For example, conducting coaching sessions via Zoom on the boat in the morning, then popping off for a sail in the afternoon. Well, again, that's all happened. I've coached, I remember once I coached one client, it was when it was absolutely baking hot in the cabin of our boat. My daughter was up on deck at the time, and our poor Frenchie, because we're having a Thelma and Louise trip, our poor Frenchie was so hot, she had to keep taking him off to the lake to cool him down. So, just it is funny reading this back, thinking, oh my God, that's what we set out to achieve. And you've just got to dream it and then believe it, folks, and then you will become it. So I'd like to be able to provide support to my girl as she needs it through what can be turbulent years as humans go from teenager to adult. The aspects for me, the mountains. This is connected to my past, having lived in the lakes when I was 12 for a year. It was the happiest time of my childhood. See, I wasn't totally incongruent. There was some stuff in there. The sea. I'm from Costa del Moricambi, and so I'm used to seeing the sea, and it makes me feel free. So at the time, we were quite landlocked where we used to live, so hence the need to be near the sea. Both hills and water take my breath away. They put everything into perspective. They cleanse my soul. I love the beauty of nature, and this is connected to my values. This vision is something that both my husband and I share, along with some core values. We keep the vision alive by discussing it regularly. We move towards it by getting into the nitty-gritty of the plan. Writing this book is part of the plan. Hey, maybe even I'll coach you via Zoom. You know what's funny as well? If I didn't have my screen on, you'd be able to see behind me, and I've got these two lovely armchairs. Well, they're quite firm, actually. That's why I was pausing. But they are very nice. And the idea was that I had a different coaching space. I don't know why I bought them, because actually the dream that I set out, which was to just work on Zoom, has been achieved. And the reason I didn't want to coach people face to face is that my husband's retired. And so having clients in and out of the house can be a bit tricky. So yeah, it is really funny reading this. All of that from one measly line. Do you get where we're going with this? Can you see how things begin to link and connect? So we've already covered your purpose or mission in chapter 4. The next step is to identify your vision, which should outline what you want to achieve as part of the process in this book. What are all the things that are going to make you shine? What's your version of destination joy? Typically, when I'm coaching individuals or organisations, we work on a 5 to 10 year vision. You're the captain of this voyage, though, so decide what timescale you would like. So, be the brave captain. Again, I'm just skipping over the activities. The activities relate to you crafting your own vision. Be the brave captain. The last few words about visions. Visions keep you alive, moving forward and relevant. They keep you enthusiastic about life, because otherwise we get stuck in the mundanity of it all. If we fail to fully explore what we're capable of, what a waste of talent. If we fail to really access the joy of work life whilst we walk this planet, what a waste of time. I've previously mentioned I like to think of us all being work in progress, but in a growth mindset way, not in your never good enough way. Having new territory to explore makes work life exciting. You can do plenty of havening work, which you'll do in the next chapter, and I've done shiploads. But then if you do nothing with the beautiful being that is you, I'm talking to you, and you don't dare to try out new things to keep work life interesting, you could run the risk of getting bored and blue. Be the brave captain. Go and set that stretch vision. When clients are scared of their stretch vision, I talk to them about the swimming pool analogy. My daughter will happily spend most of a holiday in the water. She gets frustrated with me because I do the whole edging bit by bit like that, allowing the water to slowly creep up my waist. She will shout, "Oh, come on, mummy, hurry up." Then, before you know it, I'm fully submerged and off. It is the same with our visions. If we action one task after another, more about these later, before we know it, we're waist deep in our vision and halfway towards achieving it. The fear is dissipated and the destination is in sight. Next heading, port of calls, your goals. To reach your desired destination, you're going to need a plan. Otherwise, we're at risk of failing to arrive at destination joy. You wouldn't dream of chartering a boat around the world without working out your ports of call. It would be too big a distance to cover. It's the same with your vision. We need to break it down into manageable chunks, the first of which will be your goals, what you need to achieve in order to attain your vision, followed by how you're going to achieve your goals, which are the tasks. 4 types of goal. In Science Daily, they quote a study by the Department of Psychology at the University of Wyoming in which they analysed the language used in goals. There are 4 categories of goal. Number 1, prominence, which covers goals ranging from power and money making to perfection and glory, but most strongly reflects the pursuit of social status, the desire to earn the respect, admiration, and deference of others through one's achievements. Number 2, inclusiveness, which covers a goal to open-mindedly accept people of all types. Number 3, negativity prevention, which covers goals to avoid a wide variety of negative outcomes, including conflict, disagreement, isolation, and social discord. Number 4, tradition, which includes the desire to uphold the long-standing institutions of one's culture, including religion, family, nation, and other group values. When I read this research and reflected on my current goals, it made sense and I could fit them into the above categories. Now, please don't mould your goals to fit this research. I share this research with you to reassure you, you're normal, other people are doing this stuff. As you think about the voyage you're about to embark on as you read this book, what do you need to do to reach your vision? Ensure whatever goals you set, everything is aligned with your snapshot, which we discussed in a previous chapter, which is about what you want to change, your strengths, what you're good at. We end up at destination grim if we pursue a dream that doesn't suit our skills and abilities. And that's not good for imposter syndrome. It makes us feel like an imposter, folks. Values. I advise caution here. You can go completely off course if you fail to factor in what's important to you. For example, in our next house move, if we forget to include our value of privacy, we would be miserable. What's hilarious about that, is we did end up going all over the place. We thought we wanted, a traditional chocolate box, Lakeland cottage, imagine slate walls, roses over the door, mullioned, is that what you call them? Windows, all that type of thing. And we did go after a house like that and we lost to a cash buyer. But in actual fact, what we thought was our ideal turned out we'd got a values misalignment. And so actually, if we'd have reflected back, what's really important to us is time freedom, and we don't have DIY skills. So why on earth were we thinking about buying a doer-upper? And, it would have made us really miserable if we'd done that. And again, if we'd reflected back, we'd have been able to say, well, come on, you've never lived in anything that's required renovation. They've always been new builds. And so that's where we live. We live in a new build. But what was interesting was, so we are not overlooked at one side. So 2 sides, actually, not at all. We overlook Kendall Fell, which is amazing. To the other side, we can't, our neighbours can't see into our garden because they live in a bungalow. I feel really silly saying this. But on the other side, we've got the show home. And in fact, I can't believe we didn't even twig. So we actually went in the show home, and we looked into what is now our garden from one of the bedrooms and went, oh yeah, we like that plot. We really like it. We had looked at so many houses, we'd had so many things on our tick list that we didn't, and because nobody was living there, we didn't think, oh, actually, somebody's going to move in one day and they will be looking into our garden. Anyway, so do you know what we've put? We've put up some lollipop trees. Trees that, I can't think what they're called, but they're beautiful. And they have the leaves all year, and so we've got our privacy again. But I just thought, yeah, flipping hilarious. Anyway, I was talking about values. Purpose. So this is keep in mind. So just to rewind the tape a little bit so you know the list I'm referring to. So as you think about your voyage you're about to embark on, as you read this book, what do you need to do to reach your vision? And I said, ensure that whatever goals you set, everything is aligned to. So I've just covered values. And the next thing I've said is purpose. How you make a difference in this world. For years, I banged on about having a cafe. I did. It was my first Saturday job. Yes, I could potentially optimise Brilliance with the staff I employed, but I wouldn't be helping nearly enough people to shine. So we've got some more actions there. So scrolling on. Right, we're going to move on to goals now. Call me old-fashioned, but SMART goals still serve my clients and me well. Although I do tend to drop the A, which stands for achievable, as I believe in shooting for the moon. Questioning whether something is achievable can cause self-doubt, and we can begin to talk ourselves out of the thing that we're trying to achieve. So I like to call it SMRT, S-M-R-T. Also, according to Christopher Berglund, world-class endurance athlete, coach and author of The Athlete's Way, Sweat and the Biology of Bliss, we can make ourselves happier and increase the confidence molecule, serotonin, by challenging ourselves regularly and going after things that reinforce a sense of purpose, meaning and accomplishment. We're back to being the brave captain again, folks. I've seen a variety of different meanings for SMRT objectives, but this is the one that I think is best. So S stands for specific. So what specifically do you want to achieve? M stands for measurable. How will you know when you have attained the goal? What evidence will you have? R stands for relevant. How is this goal connected to your vision? Why are you even doing this? T stands for time bound. When will you have attained the goal by? The next step is to turn these subject areas into goals and write them down. If you're hesitating and thinking about skipping this step, in a study by psychologist Gail Matthews, she identified that people were 33% more successful in achieving the desired outcomes when they wrote the goals down as opposed to keeping them in the head. There's even more research now, folks. You can increase your goal attainment something to like 95%. So there's all sorts of aspects, but when I was doing my research for my other book, so it's things like, yes, absolutely think about the goal, write it down, that will increase your chances. Think about how you're going to achieve it as well and mentally commit to it. But one of the things that will really help you achieve a goal is by having an accountability buddy. So having a coach or a trusted friend, somebody that you will hold you accountable to your actions. So I'm going to skip over the next action step. So plotting the course, tasks. When you begin plotting a course as a sailor, there are two important things you need to know: where you're currently at, your snapshot, and where you want to travel to, your vision. You must know where you are at any time by spotting the navigation aids such as buoys and lighthouses. These will help you know whether you are on or off course. Your tasks will become your navigation aids, guiding you through your ports of call, so your goals, to your destination, your vision. and make the voyage less scary. Part of what makes your vision and goals scary is that the chunks are too big. I procrastinated over writing this book for 10 years. I hadn't plotted my course. I hadn't broken down the goal into micro steps, so in other words, tasks. Also, I had limiting beliefs that were creating drag on the project, such as, I haven't got enough time. I don't know how to write a book. Even though I'd read several books on the topic and attended a book writing course. I'd started and stopped writing my book countless times. Then one day I met with a client for lunch. We strayed into personal topics and I somehow got the subject of my book. I'd been keeping her held to account through coaching for the last 6 months. And here I was confessing that I'd not achieved one of my aspirations. I made more excuses as she probed further. I defended my lack of action. I cringed as I walked away. I made myself promise to do better next time. If you're listening, hon, you know who you are. I had to identify all the small steps, the tasks involved in achieving my goal. The first task was to email a book coach, Debbie Jenkins, if you're listening, amazing book coach for anyone that has aspirations to write a book, and find out how they could help. Not scary. Not scary, is it? Just sending an email. Not having to write anything yet. The initial person I spoke to laughed when I said how long I'd been writing my book. That wasn't Debbie. I didn't take that relationship forward. She was just very judgmental. I felt stupid, got scared again, and so I procrastinated a little bit more. Then I was running a course and encouraging the delegates to set goals for the program. I asked them to agree to take one small step within the next 24 hours, which would get them off the starting blocks and moving towards the goal. I've managed to prick my own conscience. I needed to be the brave captain. Coincidentally, another book coach, here she is, called Debbie Jenkins, connected with me whilst the delegates were on the break. Talk about serendipity again. I've said, very serendipitous. I dropped her an email to say that it could be worth us talking. This was the second task. We booked a Zoom call, third task, and when we spoke, the chemistry was right this time. I felt so inspired and excited. I signed up to her coaching program. Fourth task. Book writing no longer felt scary. We worked out a plan together. Fifth task. I was going to reserve every Monday in my diary to write. Sixth task. Small steps add up to the achievement of a big goal. Incidentally, in the goal setting study I mentioned earlier, those people that had to report on their goals weekly achieved significantly more than all other groups. Working with my coach helped me to be accountable, to stay on track. I made promises to her after each session, then we would review those tasks when we met next, and it only worked. Skipping over the next action. Programming the quickest route into your ship's navigation system. The brain processes a picture 60,000 times quicker than a word. In a study conducted by a team of neuroscientists from MIT, they discovered that the brain can process entire images that the eye sees for as little as 13 milliseconds. To put this into context, it takes you 300 to 400 milliseconds to blink your eye, which is a third of a second. This means that your brain can identify what it's looking at approximately 30 times faster than you can blink. How amazing is that? We are just amazing, aren't we? So, to apply the science and efficiently program our brains with goals and tasks we want to achieve that will take us to our destination joy, we need to draw. When I first set up B, I used to run an intensive 13-day course called the Enabling Excellence Program. As part of this program, delegates became NLP practitioners, but also spent a day envisioning their future. I'd get the audience to discuss, write, then draw the vision, goals and tasks on a large piece of paper. Drawing can often make delegates feel uneasy because many people haven't picked up a set of crayons since they were at school. In the spirit of sharing that vulnerability, I would show them a picture I'd drawn for my vision and goals. The picture included a 3-story Georgian house, which was big enough for me to see my clients at home. Can you see the switch of strategy, folks? At the time, looking at this picture seemed like an unachievable pipe dream. And several years later, having settled into our new home, I came across my old vision and goals board. Our house was almost a replica of the one I'd drawn. So if you've ever been on my vision sessions, you'll have seen me hold up that really crappy drawing of that house, and then I'll show them a picture of our previous house, and they're almost identical. It is uncanny. Right, I'm going to skip over the next action. I'm going to go straight to the summary of key points. To avoid destination grim and the miserable mystery tour, identify your destination joy, your vision. Write it down in less than 30 words and no more than 2 sentences. Then work out your ports of call. These are your goals. What do you need to achieve to reach your vision? Plot your course. Avoid going adrift by working out all the tasks involved in delivering the goal. This is the how of your goal. Be the brave captain and shoot for the moon. You can make yourself happier and more confident by stretching yourself and accomplishing new things linked to your purpose. Avoid visualizing the destination you want to head towards. Studies show that it will screw up your navigation system. Stop damaging your motivation by fooling your brain into believing you've already accomplished the dream. You will increase your chances of success if you write down how you're going to achieve your vision through your goals and tasks. You can cement these choices and appeal to both sides of the brain by also drawing what it is that you're going to do. So, if having listened to all of that jazz, you think, actually, I just can't be bothered, I do offer something called the Shine coaching program, and we can do this work together. That's the summary. I've also got something called the Next Level Leadership Program, which is slightly different to the Shine program. The Next Level Leadership Program will take a deeper dive into all the vision stuff. The Shine coaching program is more focused on stress, recovering from imposter syndrome. You do set goals, and you are recovering from workaholism. But either of those programs you can find on my website, estellereed.com, and if it piques your interest, you can book a free discovery call. If you're listening on YouTube, you can see that there's that QR code and you can access all of that information there. So stay tuned in. Chapter 6, it's going to get really interesting, folks. Chapter 6 is Antidote number 6, Offload Excess Baggage. This is where we start getting into havening. So I'm going to sign off. I hope that's been useful. That is my ultimate intention, is just to be as useful as possible. I'll let you into a little secret. My latest vision, I'm still kind of painting the canvas, doing those strokes on the canvas. This is one of the things that I talk about, that if at first your vision isn't crystal clear, then you've got to take a few strokes at it. You've got to keep returning to it. And for about 18 months, I had a vision that was related to certain fee income. And to be honest, it just turned me cold. And it didn't inspire me. And I was a bit like, well, I've achieved the vision. We've moved here. What next, basically? And this podcast is part of that vision, in that I want to help 1 million people. Now, you might think, well, that's totally unrealistic. In my mind, it's not, because every time someone listens to the podcast, shares it with friends, or recommends it, or anytime anyone sees any of my social media posts, or anytime I obviously speak at an event or I coach people one-to-one, I'm helping people. And that's what I was born to do, is to help you ultimately be the best version of yourself. Hence why my business is called Be. And that's being the best version of yourself at work, so that you optimize what you do for a living, so that, do you know what, you lead your very best work life as well. So personal life, you can do all of the things that you want to do. You can achieve all the things that you want to achieve, because I believe in not living half a life. You want to live life to the max. Anyway, I'll get off my soapbox. I could go on and on. I need to bring the podcast to a close. So take care, and I will speak to you next time. Bye. If you'd like to be notified when the next episode drops, remember to subscribe. If you found this episode helpful, please share it with someone who might benefit. Finally, if any of these topics have sparked your interest and you'd like to work with me, you can apply for a free discovery call at estellereed.com. Let's see if we're a good fit. You'll also find plenty of free resources there. I'm Estelle Reed, executive coach, speaker, and best-selling author, and this has been the Optimising Your Brilliance podcast. Thanks for listening. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered professional advice. Please consult with a qualified professional for any specific advice related to your situation.